Right now, you're probably having a drink, or thinking about your next one. The last time you had a beer, a glass of wine, or your favorite cocktail, you probably didn't think much about it. But what you were doing is one of the oldest behaviors in human history. In fact, our relationship with alcohol is older than writing, older than farming, and possibly even older than our own species. It all begins around 10 million years ago on the forest floor of ancient Africa. Imagine a small primate picking up a piece of fruit that had fallen from a tree and sat on the ground for days. As the fruit ripened, natural yeast began fermenting its sugars, creating small amounts of alcohol. According to biologist Robert Dudley's Drunken monkey hypothesis, our ancestors may have been naturally attracted to these fermented fruits. The smell helped them locate ripe, energy-rich food, and over countless generations they became increasingly tolerant of small amounts of alcohol. Long before humans learned to brew, nature had already introduced us to fermentation. Fast forward to about 13,000 years ago. In Raqefet cave, near modern-day Haifa in Israel, archaeologists discovered stone mortars carved into the cave floor. Inside them were traces of wheat and barley that had been soaked, germinated, and fermented. Many researchers believe this is some of the earliest evidence of beer making ever found. What's remarkable is that these people weren't farmers. They were hunter-gatherers collecting wild grain from nature. Yet they were already making fermented drinks. That discovery changed how many archaeologists think about early civilization. Then comes one of history's greatest mysteries. Around 11,500 years ago, people built the massive stone monument we now call Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey. Some of its stone pillars weigh more than 10 tons, and they were erected before villages, pottery, or organized farming became common. Why would hunter-gatherers build something so enormous? Researchers later found large stone vats containing chemical traces that may indicate fermented grain. One leading idea is that Gobekli Tepe served as a gathering place where large groups met for rituals, feasts, and possibly shared fermented drinks. It's only one hypothesis, but it's a fascinating one. Some experts, including archaeologist Patrick McGovern, have even suggested that the desire to brew beer may have encouraged the development of agriculture itself. Not everyone agrees, and many historians believe farming developed for several reasons, including food security. But the idea that beer played an important role remains one of archaeology's most intriguing debates. By around 7000 BCE, brewing had become even more sophisticated. In Jiahu, China, archaeologists discovered pottery containing the oldest chemically confirmed fermented beverage ever found. It was made from rice, honey, grapes, and hawthorn fruit. This wasn't an accident. It was a carefully crafted recipe, showing that people already understood fermentation remarkably well. Thousands of years later, ancient Egypt took brewing to an entirely new level. Beer became part of everyday life. Workers who helped build the pyramids received beer as part of their daily food rations. It provided calories, nutrition, and hydration, making it an important source of energy for people performing hard physical labor. Beer also played a major role in religion, medicine, and ceremonies. The Egyptians believed it was a gift from the god Osiris, and physicians often mixed herbs into beer as part of ancient medical treatments. One simple drink served as food, payment, medicine, and ritual all at once. So here's the incredible timeline. Around 10 million years ago, our distant ancestors were eating naturally fermented fruit. About 13,000 years ago, humans were likely brewing fermented grain in caves. Around 11,500 years ago, Monumental gathering places may have hosted large communal feasts with fermented drinks. By 7000 BCE, people had developed complex brewing recipes, and by 3000 BCE, entire civilizations had woven beer into daily life. Alcohol didn't suddenly appear after civilization. Instead, evidence suggests it has accompanied humanity through nearly every stage of our journey. Every time someone raises a glass today, they're taking part in a tradition that stretches back millions of years, from a fallen piece of fruit on an ancient forest floor to the modern world. The recipe has changed. The cups have changed. But the curiosity that first led our ancestors toward fermentation may still be with us today. But alcohol didn't just help fill cups. It quietly shaped cultures, economies, and even politics. As civilizations grew larger, brewing became more than a household skill. It became an industry. In ancient Mesopotamia, beer was so important that it was written into some of the earliest known laws. Workers received it as payment, merchants traded it across cities, and temples oversaw much of its production. Brewing wasn't considered ordinary work. In many places, it was a respected profession, often carried out by women who passed their recipes from one generation to the next. One of the oldest surviving pieces of literature even celebrates beer. Known as the Hymn to Ninkasi, it honored the Sumerian goddess of brewing, while also serving as a recipe. Instead of a modern cookbook, people remembered the brewing process through song. Imagine learning to make beer by singing. As trade routes expanded, alcohol traveled with them. Wine spread across the Mediterranean. Beer moved throughout Europe. New ingredients were discovered, new techniques were invented, and every region developed its own traditions. The ancient Greeks believed wine encouraged thoughtful conversation and philosophy. During gatherings called symposiums, people drank while discussing politics, science, poetry, and the meaning of life. The Romans took wine almost everywhere they went. As their empire expanded, vineyards followed. Roads built for armies also carried barrels of wine to distant provinces, helping connect cultures across thousands of miles. Meanwhile, in Northern Europe, where grapes struggled to grow, people perfected the art of brewing beer from barley and other grains. Every climate produced its own drink, shaped by local crops and traditions. But alcohol wasn't only changing societies, it was also changing human biology. Many populations gradually developed genetic adaptations that allowed them to process alcohol more efficiently. These changes didn't happen overnight. They unfolded over thousands of generations as fermented drinks became a regular part of daily life for many communities. At the same time, not every population evolved in exactly the same way. Even today, people metabolize alcohol differently depending on their genetic background, reminding us that human evolution is still written into our bodies. Then came one of history's greatest technological breakthroughs. Around the first millennium, people discovered distillation. Unlike brewing or winemaking, distillation concentrated alcohol into much stronger forms. What had once been drinks containing only a few % alcohol could now become spirits many times more powerful. At first, distilled alcohol wasn't created for parties. It was often used by physicians, alchemists, and scholars who believed it had medicinal properties. Some even called it the water of life, a name that survives today in words like whiskey, derived from the Gaelic phrase Uisge Beatha. As distillation improved, spirits spread rapidly across Europe, Asia, and eventually the Americas. With stronger alcohol came greater opportunity, and greater risk. Governments realized alcoholic beverages could generate enormous tax revenue. Kingdoms regulated production, licensed taverns, and imposed duties on brewers and distillers. In many places, controlling alcohol became a powerful tool for funding armies, roads, and public projects. By now, alcohol had become far more than a fermented drink. It had become a global commodity. It influenced trade, inspired religions, supported governments, created industries, and connected people from completely different cultures. Few inventions in history have traveled so far or lasted so long. From naturally fermented fruit beneath African trees, to the first brewers experimenting inside caves, to vast ancient civilizations, and now to nearly every country on Earth. Alcohol has remained a constant companion throughout the human story. The next chapter, however, would reveal its darker side. As cities became crowded and industrial production made alcohol cheaper than ever before, humanity would discover that one of its oldest companions could also become one of its greatest challenges.